All right. Haha. Brand new episode, FanAddicts MMA show here on FightFans Radio. I am your host, Erica Lewis, back from Vegas, what seemed like the longest trip I've ever been on in my entire life. 8 days in Vegas is 6 days too long. I am joined by my partners in crime, David Wolf and Justin Cohey. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
What's up?
And we have a special guest co-host today, Tommy Toehold himself. Tommy is blowing up all over fucking YouTube, man. How's that feel?
It feels pretty awesome.
I mean, when you first started this, we were talking about this right before we went on air. When you first started this, did you expect it to... at some point you have to kind of pump yourself up into thinking you're going to be hot shit. But did you think it was going to catch on quite this fast?
Honestly, I had no idea. I mean, I just did it kind of for fun at first, and then, like when I talked to you guys last, I think I had 2,000 views on a video, and then this week's already 25,000. So it's crazy. I had no idea it was going to blow up like this at all.
I think it's pretty fucking amazing, dude. It really is. So congratulations on your success. And thank you so much for not getting too big for your britches to come on here and shoot the shit with us for a little bit about MMA.
Guess another 50,000 views. You might not be so lucky.
So, there's so much for us to talk about. We missed, I think we missed 2 weeks of the show. I work for Fight Metrics, so they sent me out for UFC 146 and the Ultimate Fighter live finale. Both were really great events, especially UFC 146. And since we missed actually doing any predictions or talking about that, just real quick, Tommy, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. UFC 146, that has to be up there as one of the, at least for 2012 so far, one of the best UFC pay-per-views for 2012. Do you agree?
No, absolutely. I thought it was awesome. I mean, every fight on the main card finished. There was all kinds of spectacular finishes. Stephen Struve's armbar was unbelievable. That match with Kane and Bigfoot, the blood was just, I've never seen that much blood in a fight in my entire life. And then to see the awesomeness that is Junior Dos Santos was very cool. Definitely one of the best cards I've seen in a while.
Oh, absolutely. And being there in person, where I was situated was literally where Ariel Helwani does all of his interviews for the winners was right behind us. It was like 5 feet behind us where we were, or Fight Metric was stationed at.
Were you anywhere near Brock Lesnar?
Oh my God. I saw on our screens that Brock Lesnar was there, and I did not get a chance to
interview him? Get him on our show?
To really bug the hell out of him.
Tattoo.
Brock, what do you have a piece on your chest?
I did, however, accidentally run into Charlize Theron and Joel Edgerton while I was there, and I may get made fun of for this. I had no idea who they were at first. I didn't recognize them. I was out back smoking a cigarette, and this black tinted SUV pulls up.
What kind of cigarette?
Menthol, Marlboro.
Oh, what a waste.
I know, not the good kind of cigarette. I had
just the kind that'll kill you without getting you high.
Yeah, exactly. So they pull up, they get out of the car, and I hold the door for them as they go in. And Charlize says thank you to me. I didn't even realize who it was. I was too busy talking to other people while I was out there. So when I get back inside, the camera pans to them. It's like Joel Edgerton and Charlize Theron just showed up, and I was like, oh, that's who that was. Oh.
I don't know if I'd have recognized her. Him, definitely not.
Him, definitely not. He's a lot shorter than I thought he was going to be. But her, you would think that, she's fucking gorgeous. And I didn't even, I don't know.
I once didn't recognize John Bon Jovi when he came into the movie theater and bought a ticket from me.
Okay, fair enough. I guess celebrities just look so much different when
my manager's like, you know who that was? And I was like, it's some long-haired dirty guy. Well, it's John Bon Jovi.
No, because at the first fight night in Fairfax, I was walking out of the bathroom, and when you say run into, I literally ran into LeVar Arrington, had no idea who he was.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Especially since LeVar Arrington is a fucking huge dude, too.
Yeah, I ran into him, and I was like, I am so sorry. I would never do anything to offend a man of your size.
You were scared of him because he was a big black guy, weren't you, Justin?
No, come on.
You didn't even have to be big. He was scared of his
my God.
We're all we really are. Okay, but the after UFC 146, there were a lot of talks about matchups coming up, and obviously it seems like the most logical one that came out of it, of course, is Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos too. David, you say yes. Is that the right fight to make? I'm guessing yes. And
of course.
I just saw that Junior Dos Santos is coming out as a slight favorite over Cain Velasquez. Do you think in a second matchup that it's going to go a similar way, or do you see Cain Velasquez having a different strategy in their rematch?
Well, I see Cain Velasquez hopefully not being injured, and the same thing for Junior Dos Santos. I mean, Cain could get caught again, so it could go the same way. But, as I've said on this program before, I don't think that first fight told us really anything about how a second fight will go. And I'm really excited for it. I think they are clearly the two elite heavyweights in the world right now. These are the two best, and I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think the Frank Mir fight was the one to make for this show. I didn't think it would be competitive, and I don't consider it as a competitive fight. I think it was 8 minutes of domination. But, the numbers came in. It did really well. And having these two perform as they did, meaning Junior and Cain, I think it's going to really do a lot to help their second fight. And I think that's going to do big numbers on pay-per-view.
This fight actually did fairly
did well.
It did really well, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I just remember thinking
over 500,000.
So that's considering how pay-per-views have been lately, that's a really phenomenal number. Now, and
those are John Jones numbers. So,
yeah, they really are.
Imagine what it would have done with Reem still on the show.
Yeah. Do you think that would have picked the numbers up had Reem remained on the show? Although if Reem had remained on the show, we wouldn't have had some of the matchups that we had.
But you don't know that in advance.
That's true. That's very true. Okay.
I think it would have increased it by probably a third, if not double.
That's very likely. It was a very good show, and like I said, where I was situated backstage, Junior Dos Santos came out. He was very, very, very excited. He just kept yelling "woo!" and I don't know. He's such a happy guy. I kept saying on the show I was not sold on Junior Dos Santos, and I concede I am sold on Junior Dos Santos now. So I'm really excited about this Cain Velasquez.
Hey, Erica, how over was Cain Velasquez with the crowd? He was huge, right?
I don't.
Huge star.
I remember when he walked out. Yeah, I do remember the crowd kind of losing their effing minds over.
Yeah, Cain is a big freaking star, and not only in Mexico.
You know what?
Well, he was in San Jose, and that's where AKA is. That's where he's from. So, I mean, I don't know if he's so much of a star as that was just the perfect. Like, I mean, if you're going to have him walk out in the U.S. anywhere and have him get a reaction, it's going to be in San Jose.
That was a hometown reaction?
I mean, in Vegas?
I think so.
In Vegas? A hometown reaction in Vegas?
Oh, crap. They were in Vegas.
They were...
I don't know.
And there were a bunch of Brazilians there cheering for Cain.
Yeah. I don't know. There was a lot of people there.
Cain is onto something. And the guy's got no charisma. It's incredible.
You know what? He doesn't have charisma, but I don't know if you guys noticed after they called that fight, the look on Cain Velasquez's face.
He looks like a stone cold killer, and that's what I love to see.
Fuck having charisma when you got a look like that on your face. He scared the shit out of me. It was like watching some horror movie.
That look on his face made me excited for the rematch because, like, we've seen Cain, like, usually, like, when he knocked out Nogueira, he kind of threw up the pitchfork, doesn't the normal not showing any emotion on his face. But when he finished Silva, he got up and he looked pissed. And I was like, oh, God, I can't wait for the rematch.
So, speaking of matches, Justin, I'm going to have you, at least for the main card, and if there are any other interesting matchups, especially in the preliminary card, we had Jamie Varner come in and absolutely destroy Edson Barboza. Nobody saw that coming. I think Jamie Varner was a 5-1 underdog in that fight. Damn it!
And for the people who love to say UFC fixes fights,
if
really
you watch that fight,
proof is in the pudding right there.
Edson Barboza didn't know what the fuck was coming at him when Jamie Varner was in that cage, and Jamie
Varner was not supposed to win that fight.
No, and I actually got a chance to talk to him for a hot 2 seconds right before the Ultimate Fighter finale. We usually get a chance to walk around the cage, and the guys were in there kind of warming up. And Varner was in, I'm trying to remember whose corner he was in. He was in somebody's corner. They lost, if I remember correctly. But Varner was there, so I stopped him and I just asked him a couple of questions. And he said it was one of the best homecomings he's ever had, and rightly so. It was an amazing comeback for him. Tommy, you've been kind of quiet. Tell me about that. When you saw Jamie Varner beat the shit out of Edson Barbosa, were you like everybody else kind of in this stunned silence for like a good 5-10 minutes?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. And it was unbelievable. That's what's so cool about MMA, in my opinion, is you can get matchups like that where, 12 out of 12 people are going to tell you that he's going to lose that fight, and then he doesn't. And it was so cool. And it was funny. I was with a bunch of people that don't really watch the UFC very much, and they were all looking at me like I was insane because I was freaking out, and they were all just like, what the hell's the big deal? But that was so cool. That was one of the coolest prelim fights I think I've seen in a real long time.
Absolutely. I love a good underdog story, and I love a good upset in a
Dan
fight.
Hardy was another one, right?
Oh yeah, Dan. Well, it's funny if you watch the pay-per-view and you hear Joe Rogan's commentary. I think that and this is probably one of the things that Joe Rogan gets, kind of critiqued the most on by fans. As you're watching the fight,
they're idiots. Joe Rogan is excellent.
He's talking, though. He starts off talking about Dwayne Bang and how superior his Muay Thai is than everybody else. And as the fight goes along, and you see that Dan Hardy is not really getting picked apart like Joe Rogan is kind of setting it up to be. You can see that moment where he changes up and he's like, Dan Hardy has a really good lead left hook, and then all of a sudden he lands it and knocks the piss out of Dwayne Bang
And Rogan called it in advance, though, as he was watching the fight.
He did, but it was purely coincidence. You could tell it was purely because...
It was coincidence?
Oh, it was purely because Joe Rogan was spending way too much time on his knees talking about Dwayne Bang, and then when he realized that what he was saying was not being reflected in the fight, he changed his tone. And he does that a lot. He does that all the time. He'll sit there and he'll suck off a fighter for a good, 2 rounds, and then all of a sudden he changes his tune, and it's one of the things Joe Rogan is criticized about a lot, and it was just really apparent in that fight to me as we were watching it. I was like, wow, Joe is really high on this Dwayne Ludwig, and I think Dwayne Ludwig has very good
Ludwig is still more technical than Dan Hardy.
He is. Obviously, that technique didn't come out in that fight.
Well, yeah, Dan Hardy's capable of knocking out anyone. I think.
I tend to agree with Erica on this one. I tend to think that this wasn't necessarily one of those situations where Rogan was just wrong with his analysis or what was going on. Or I just think he has his favorites, and I think Ludwig is one of those favorites. For a long time, when the UFC wasn't recognizing Ludwig's win over Goulet as the fastest knockout,
yeah.
Rogan was one of the guys at the front of the line being like, the fastest knockout in UFC history was Dwayne Ludwig. It's no question. And, this isn't the first time or the first fight with Dwayne Ludwig that I've heard Rogan just really just kind of almost jerking him off. Ludwig does have fantastic Muay Thai, but, I don't think it's fair to focus so much on, someone's strengths, especially a mid-tier fighter, when... and specifically in the Dan Hardy fight, where yes, he clipped Hardy early, but for the rest of the fight, you could tell he was having trouble finding his range, and then Hardy started connecting more, and then, like Erica said, his tune starts to change a little bit, so he doesn't sound like he's just wrong 100% of the time, and then boom, he happens to say the one good thing that he has to say about Hardy, and it happens, and Hardy wins. I think that was kind of what happened.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. I mean, I'm not bashing Rogan. I think Rogan is probably the best MMA commentator out there by far. He doesn't rely on really lame metaphors and analogies.
I mean, when it gets to the ground, that's when he really shines.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, he's awesome on the ground. Like when he called the banana, the banana split.
Yes, that was quintessential Joe Rogan there, and why Joe Rogan is the best announcer. And even if the criticisms are valid, I mean, that stuff is amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, Justin, real quick, give us your post UFC 146 matchups that you wanted to make. You probably make some of the best predictions or the most accurate predictions that I at least see post fight. So give us your thoughts on the ones that you made for UFC 146.
Yeah, I'll just go down the main card real quick. As far as LeVar Johnson, I'm thinking Dave Herman would be a good matchup for him. Both guys like to kind of stand up and bang, put on a show. Lower mid-tier fighters, so I think that would be an entertaining fight. Stefan Struve was originally supposed to fight Mark Hunt. I really like that fight. If they ever end up back in Japan, I think that's a perfect fight to put on Japan because it's got a little bit of a freak show appeal. Shane Del Rosario, a little bummed in his performance, but I'm hoping that it was ring rust and time away from the cage that caused that sort of performance. So I think a fight with Brendan Schaub makes a lot of sense. They're both kind of on the outset with the UFC right now, but potentially could come back and make some waves in the division. I think both are extremely talented fighters, just in hitting rough spots. Stipe Miocic. I think Gabriel Gonzaga is probably a good matchup for him. Stipe, you got to be a little careful with him. I think he's extremely talented, but he's still very raw in terms of his skill set. So I think you definitely want to give him a step up in competition, but you don't want to get crazy and put him in there with someone who's top 5 in the division. So I think Gabriel Gonzaga is a nice, well-rounded fighter coming off of the win that represents a nice step up in competition for him. Dave Herman, I said, LeVar Johnson, I think that fight makes sense. Roy Nelson, I originally was saying the winner of Ben Rothwell versus Travis Brown, but I kind of think that Nelson's the perfect guy to welcome back Brock Lesnar to the UFC. I know we're going to talk about that a little later. Antonio Silva, after that, getting the piss beat out of him, I guess the loser of Ben Rothwell, Travis Brown makes sense. Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos, we both know what's going to happen with them. Erica, I said in that email, my favorite pick was for Frank Mir. And again, this is probably something that would depend on contractual situations and whether or not it's even possible. It's probably unlikely, but I would really like to see Daniel Cormier's last Strikeforce fight.
Oh my God!
Be against Frank Mir.
That'll be a massacre.
It'd be a beautiful massacre, though. No?
That totally sacrifices. I mean, Daniel Cormier will kill him.
But the thing is like a couple weeks ago, Daniel Cormier, talking about what opponents could potentially be his last fight in Strikeforce.
Give me Shane Carwin. Don't give him Frank Mir. Oh my God. And I'm not a Frank Mir fan, so if we want to see a legal criminal assault, let's book that fight.
Well, I mean, Frank Mir is definitely a better option than Tim Sylvia or Sergey Karatonov. That's where I'm going with that. Frank Mir has accomplished all he's going to accomplish in the UFC. He's going to settle in that role as an upper tier gatekeeper, and I think that's the kind of fight Daniel Cormier needs as kind of like that boost going into the UFC.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't think Frank Mir is going to be able to accomplish much more than he already has. I mean, he's already, as much as I dislike him and as...
He's a sacrificial lamb, if you book that fight.
Yeah,
all he is. He has no chance.
No chance.
None. With Cormier's wrestling?
No chance at all. Okay, sorry.
Less of a chance than he had against Junior Dos Santos, the way those styles match up.
So, who would you like to see go up against Cormier in his final fight? And I can I just note real quick that I'm kind of pissy about Strikeforce deciding last second. Not only is the winner going to have one more heavyweight fight, but so is the loser. What kind of bullshit is that? But anyway,
Shane Carwin?
That would be interesting. I also think that would be a sacrificial lamb there as well. I don't think Shane Carwin. I don't think we can even hope for Shane Carwin to come back, even a glimmer of the man that he was at one point, where we thought he was going to win the title from Brock Lesnar, and I just don't think that's going to happen. But maybe it's less of a sacrificial lamb. I don't know.
Carlin's another guy that you could have welcome Lesnar back to the UFC as well. Just because, I mean, you can really sell off that first fight. It was like, oh my God, Carwin was, so close to beating him, and then, he gasped, but then he went 3 rounds with Dos Santos, showing that he's got the stamina, whatever, blah blah blah, and this is the rematch of the the two biggest guys in the UFC. Yeah, I think you can sell that.
I think you could. All right, well, let's move on real quick. Let's talk about the rumor mill. We got to talk about Brock Lesnar returning to MMA. Brock Lesnar, of course, made his appearance at UFC 146. People have been, I think, were really quick to jump on the rumor that Brock Lesnar is talking to Dana White, and that potentially making a return to MMA. And it's not 100% clear why he would make that jump back to MMA. It's very clear why the UFC would entertain why he would come back to the UFC. I don't know if money would be Brock Lesnar's reason for coming back to MMA.
Oh, money is Brock Lesnar's reason for doing everything.
I mean, I got $20. Will Brock Lesnar do something for $20?
Not for $20, maybe.
Call Jose Canseco. He'll do it for $150.
$2 million, maybe. But did you hear the whole story? Actually, because Meltzer reported the entire story, and it's really kind of crazy because Vince McMahon knew nothing about Brock going out to UFC. Brock called up Dana White and asked to come like a week before the show and asked Dana not to say anything, and Dana didn't say anything. And then Brock showed up there, and then they had a meeting, and it was reported that the meeting went badly, but I'm thinking that might not be the case. But what really did go badly is that Vince McMahon flipped out, and Brock Lesnar hasn't been mentioned on TV, and now they've made the Big Show into this type of fighter, not an entertainer. And this is supposed to, I guess, somehow chasten Brock Lesnar, who cannot be chastened. Brock Lesnar is difficult to negotiate with, impossibly difficult to negotiate with UFC and with WWE, making demands after he signed his contract. And it's unbelievable that no one really knows what his game is here. He had his match with John Cena. He's supposed to wrestle Triple H at SummerSlam. But if he's going back to UFC, Vince McMahon's not going to let him wrestle simultaneously. So I think he'd probably once again quit WWE and just try to fight again. One last fight or a few fights. Apparently UFC is they're not interested in booking him with someone that will destroy him. So he's not going to go up against a Cormier type. They want to put him up against some type of guy that he'll have a chance with that still has somewhat of a name. So I think that Carlin made sense. There were rumors that it would be Nog. I guess he'd have to get pulled out of.
I don't understand why they're not making the trilogy with Frank Mir. That fight would make $1 gazillion.
It sounds good to me too, but I'm hearing that's not what it is.
That's bogus. All right, Tommy, how come you haven't done Brock Lesnar on the Tommy Toehold?
He almost made one of the episodes. I had it made. I had it ready to go. But then some other story broke, and I couldn't do it. But he almost made it on.
He's got to make it on, though. I mean, if he makes it back to the UFC, are you going to definitely put him on one of the episodes? I think that would be hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. I've already got it all drawn up. It's just waiting for that story to break. It might be this week, for all I know. I know I've got a lot of people asking me to do Brock, so it might happen soon.
Brock brings views.
He does. No matter where he is, Brock brings views.
Yeah, you got to use. And I
don't have to pay him anything. So.
Yes. I love the fact that you do all the voices yourself. The Nick Diaz one is absolutely my favorite by far. I'm sure.
Sounds pretty close.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody really likes the Nick Diaz one.
Yeah, man. It's awesome.
It is fucking awesome. It is
whatever, man.
It's pretty popular.
So, and I love the fact that you've incorporated him in more of your sketches. But can you give us any kind of clue as to how you would use Brock Lesnar on the Tommy Toehold show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would just be an interview, like I always do with the third segment of the show. I would probably have Paul Heyman with him as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's so ridiculous. And it would just be, standard Brock Lesnar post-fight interview style speech. So it would be pretty funny.
So you talk about
I'm gonna get on my
his wife and not drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever's sponsoring UFC.
I do have to say,
they're
Tommy.
not paying him.
I have to say, Tommy, your interview with Ariane Celeste literally had me cracking up out loud. Like, people thought I was absolutely insane.
Is that the latest one?
No, that was while I was in Vegas.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but it was he did it right after she got arrested
for domestic.
Yes,
I think
yes.
I actually did see that one.
That shit had me cracking up, and I showed everybody around me who even had two minutes to even watch it. That was funny as shit. I just got to tell you that. Thinking about it makes me crack up. I don't know, Tommy, you're a genius. You're a comedic genius. I'm sure you're hearing that.
Kind.
I'm sure you're hearing that a lot now. All right, so Brock Lesnar.
Andy Kaufman has returned.
Andy Kaufman has returned.
Oh my goodness!
I would love to see Tommy Toho wrestle women for a 50.
I bet he'd love to do it too.
The intergender champion of the world. Yeah.
Yes. I would not wrestle, however, Ariane Celeste, because she might kick you in the fucking face. So I'm just letting.
It might be worth it.
It might be.
How much money does that ugly ass dude that she beat up have to date her?
Or a big cock.
It's got to be one of the two. It can't be both.
Maybe both.
I don't know.
Is it just me, or does the more and more I see Ariane, the skinnier she gets, and the more of a cokehead that she looks like?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong about that. You're not wrong. She's like on the Angelina Jolie celebrity timeline, where she goes from being like really sexy to just kind of awkwardly skinny. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't catch no crackhead.
Wow. No, that's true. That's true. And crack gives you that crackhead strength too. So.
She's gonna start like
it would explain
around
that
the
ass.
octagon.
It would
explain the ass for sure.
She's just gonna be like sprinting like 3 or 4 times around the octagon with her little like paper round one sign.
Oh,
I love the subtle implications, like when she's there. Oh, it's great to see Ariane here tonight.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't help it. You can't help it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm glad she made bail.
Yeah, that's what I inferred.
Okay, so
and wasn't fired.
And wasn't fired. No, apparently you can beat
She's
somebody
still
up.
There. She's still dancing around.
But heaven forbid, 20 years ago you did softcore porn. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, it's like Joe Rogan saying, "Oh, thank God we kept the pretty white one."
Yeah. Good God. Anyway, all right. So another story that kind of broke out in between the last time we did a show, Kenny Florian has officially retired from MMA. That's not really huge news considering I think all of us kind of expected it to come. But I thought
he's got a bad injury. I think that's the deal.
I thought it was a good move for him in general. When I was flying back home, I actually ran into him at the airport. He was waiting for his flight out of Vegas, so I sat down and I talked with him for a few seconds. And
he looks like me, doesn't he?
Yep, Kenny Florian. Shut up.
No, I'm not even kidding. Like, he sort of does.
Yeah, if Kenny was like 60 years old.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
See, look at Justin. Justin
he warned us that TJ was coming out here.
He did warn us that TJ was coming out. Oh, my God.
We haven't started talking about Brandon Berry yet.
I'm not even 40 yet. Son.
Oh, God. So, Kenny Florian has retired, and I thought it was a really good time for him to retire, despite not being able to capture gold in his career. He still, in my opinion, he was one of those guys that was a bridesmaid. Always the bridesmaid, never a bride. He could never get the gold, but he was always right up there.
He fought in 4 different divisions. The only guy to ever do that in UFC.
Yeah. So.
It's pretty incredible. But I think Erica, I think he really has little choice here. I think his back is severely fucked up.
Really?
Yeah. I think
No, it was. I think. Not long after the Aldo fight, they weren't even sure he was going to take that fight because his back was so messed up.
I do remember that. I do remember them talking about that.
And he just re-injured it again, like recently, like really, really badly. And he hurt it working out. Probably is in poor form, Kenny.
So, with these kind of back injuries, is it even smart for Shane Carwin to even try and come back to MMA, considering that was kind of the reason that was the reason that he hasn't been fighting for so long, was multiple back surgery. So what the hell business does he have being older?
Sounds like he's got a decent job outside of MMA, too. He's an engineer or some shit.
So, I don't know. Whatever.
My worry with guys like Shane Carwin, I don't know if you guys followed Nate Quarry on Facebook, but Nate Quarry just put up on a picture where he had, Nate Quarry is one of the more famous back injury guys from the UFC, where he pretty much had a piece of his spinal column replaced with a piece of metal, and now he's put a picture up of his spinal cord again, where he's had one of his vertebrae pretty much completely collapse, and it's causing him excruciating pain. And I can't even imagine how horrific of an injury that is, what kind of rehab and surgery and, treatment that's going to require. So to hear Kenny Florian say, I've got a serious back injury, I'm going to go ahead and retire, I think that makes sense. He's not the youngest guy in the world, but Shane Carwin's, in his upper 30s, and he's had multiple neck and back issues, and now he's talking about coming back. I don't know if that's specifically because he does have, something to fall back on. I don't know if him coming back and fighting is the smartest decision in the world for him.
No, I think it's kind of stupid, to be honest with you. I just don't think that's a good idea, especially to run the risk of injuring yourself even more.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tommy. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I was just saying, it's when I think, you reach kind of a peak of your career, and you're talking about something that could possibly cripple you basically for life, and you're only 30, it's not worth coming back to do whatever it is he thought he was going to do when he came back. It just, I think sometimes you got to think about your health more than maybe your ambitions. And like we said, he has a great job outside of MMA. I hope he doesn't come back, honestly.
Oh, and for those who are interested, I've got the Facebook prelims up. Sean Pearson just defeated Jake Heck by decision.
Sean Pearson and Jake Heck. Oh, wow. That's Facebook preliminaries?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No one cares.
No one
cares. I thought I'd share.
No one cares.
No one cares about this card at all.
I care about this card.
Except for the main event.
I care about this card.
David's being grumpy about this card.
I'm being honest about this card. Come on. Nobody gives a shit about this card. We will like it because it'll have exciting fights. But aside from the main event, there are no implications for UFC, really, whatsoever.
Eric Silva versus Charlie Brenneman?
All right. Eric Silva, who we've seen decimate people. We don't know what's going to happen when that guy faces real competition or has to go more than 30 seconds.
Exactly.
And Charlie Brenneman's not a
some questions that I'm curious about.
Okay.
And I think Jorgensen and Wineland is an interesting matchup. And, I don't think Eddie Wineland is close to being a top contender, but I definitely think Scott Jorgensen, with an impressive win here, shoots right back up into being one of the top 145ers, 135ers.
Oh, shit. No one wants to see Jorgensen get another shot.
Should we just segue into some predictions right now, then, since we're already talking about it?
Actually, real quick before we get into
terrible ratings.
Before we get into predictions for tonight's card, let's talk about this injury bug real quick and some of the matchups that have had to been made as a result of the injury bug. And there were so many to really talk about. We have to kind of whittle it down. So probably the most
rumors about Anderson.
You're going to force me to talk about Brandon Vera, aren't you?
Yes, I am. That's exactly what's going on here.
Force you to talk. He's in the main event on the next Fox show. How do you have to be compelled to discuss that?
I'll talk about Shogun.
You'd rather discuss the Facebook prelims.
Okay, so what had happened was Brian Stann was supposed to fight Hector Lombard in the main event for UFC on Fox 4. And of course, the hardcore fans were bitching about that being a main event for a Fox card. And I actually think the matchup, although less competitive now, I think is a much better draw probably for casual fans than Stan and Lombard. But with Stan injured and out of the fight, they actually moved Lombard to another card to replace Michael Bisping, who was hurt. Jesus Christ. And see if you can follow me here. So Michael Bisping got hurt. Lombard got moved from the Fox card to, I think it's 149. So now it's Shogun versus Brandon Vera is headlining the UFC on Fox 4 card. Tommy, real quick, do you think I made the statement that I think that's a slightly better main eventer for a Fox card than Stan and Lombard, at least in terms of eyeballs on it. Do you agree with that? And how do you think this fight's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shogun is his name alone. I think is a better draw. As far as a fight goes, though, I mean, I think that's a horrible, horrible fight. But I mean, there's really nothing they can do. There's so many injuries, and it's funny because when they started acquiring all these fighters, people were talking about, there's too many fighters. How are they going to get all these people on cards? But it's becoming very apparent now that I don't know if there is enough fighters or at least top tier fighters, because now we've got Vera in a main event, UFC on Fox. It baffles me. But yeah, I think Shogun's going to destroy him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that feeling, and and I'm not sure if we have that feeling just purely based off of Vera's last few performances, which I think he's a very talented guy. I think he has the ability to be an extremely tough fighter, but his performances haven't really reflected that as of late. And Shogun that's a hell of a person to throw someone like Brandon Vera where he is right now in his career up against. David, since you are the Team Lloyd Irvin spokesperson for us right now,
I can't speak for the team. I can only speak for me.
Well, you are the Team Lloyd Irvin fan, I guess I should say.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on this matchup? And I think Tommy says what a lot of people are thinking is that Brandon Vera is going to get destroyed by this fight. But Vera has really great Muay Thai. He's got good wrestling, and he's got decent submissions. Do you think this fight is a little bit more competitive than people are giving it credit for?
Yeah, of course I do. I think it's going to be a really competitive fight. I don't think Shogun has looked that great against anyone except Machida, even in his victories. Brandon, okay, if he comes in like he has recently, it could be a bad night for him. If he fights the way he did against Elliot Marshall, and Shogun looks good. But then again, Shogun was losing to Dan Henderson until Dan Henderson totally blew up. I don't know what Shogun has left. I think it's a really strange main event for Fox. I know they're backed into a wall. I think Justin mentioned that he would have preferred, or he thinks it would have been a better promoted fight, Shogun against Machida 3. And the only thing I could think of with Machida is that he is known to be difficult in negotiations because it's a Fox show. Maybe he was looking for a little too much money, like pay-per-view payoff. I don't know, because I think that might have been a more marketable fight as far as Fox 3 goes. Shogun against Machida 3.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right on that. I don't think there really should be a question about that. But I think that can you agree that this Shogun versus Vera is a better fight for fans than the
Brian Stann against Hector Lombard hasn't fought. Did he fight in UFC like years ago, maybe?
No, Hector Lombard.
Never fought in UFC. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's. I don't know how that headlines a show. I mean, granted, Brian Stann is probably the best of the four to have as part of something like this because he's so good as far as promoting things. But as a fight goes, it's definitely a step up over Stann against Lombard.
All right, and these injuries have caused quite a few shakeups as of late. Even though there are Brazilian Silvas, Thiago Silva has been out, of course. Anderson Silva is rumored to have a knee injury.
That would be huge.
He is saying that
Dana White came out and said that wasn't true.
Of course he did.
Oh yeah, okay. Trust Dana.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Dana says one thing, and then you learn later that day it was a complete lie, a bald-faced lie. I trust nothing from Dana on something like this, especially.
So, Erica,
all of a sudden they'll announce that Anderson's out of the fight. And we'll be like, what?
Before we move forward too much, can I actually say something about the Shogun Vera fight?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, TJ.
Do not defame Brandon.
The thing is that I just wanted to at least say on air that I agree pretty much with everything David said. I do think this is a better main event than what they were going to do with Stan and Lombard. I don't think it's the best main event possible, but given the situation, I think it's not a terrible main event. Again, we've seen Brandon struggle in recent times, but at the same time, we've seen Shogun really struggle in recent times. Even in the win over Forrest Griffin, where everyone was like freaking out because he won by a first-round knockout, his legs looked really wobbly. Like to be as young as he is and to have had as many ACL repair surgeries that he's had, that's definitely going to take its toll on you as a fighter. So I at least wanted to say out loud, and, and this is probably because of the nightmare I told Erica that I had.
That you were on the Ultimate Fighter and that Brandon Vera was your coach and he heard all the shit you said about him.
One of the worst nightmares I've ever had. It was so awkward.
You were a cast member of Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, yes. I was a cast member in the Ultimate Fighter, and Brandon Vera was my coach.
And he heard all the shit that TJ had been saying about him on air. And
what drugs had you taken that night?
What's that?
What drugs had you taken that night, and why didn't you share?
Dude, nothing. I just keep having like random ass dreams, and that was one of them that I had. And maybe that's why it's inspired me to not like talk bad crap about Brandon Vera. But Brandon's a talented guy. He's a good Muay Thai fighter, good wrestler. He's got submissions as well. Okay, maybe he didn't look great against Elliot Marshall. His biggest win in a while was probably against Christoph, but Shogun faces a top light heavyweight. Well, given the weakness of that division, I think that kind of overshadows how far his talent has fallen. If Shogun was in the 170 division, he would have gone by the wayside quite a while ago. But because the 205 is such a weak division, once you get out of those top few guys, then there's really nothing left at the bottom. So I really would have liked to seen Shogun fight Teixeira and Glover Teixeira instead. I don't know why that fight didn't materialize. I don't even know why in the hell Igor Potaev was...
Because it's a lose-lose for Shogun.
Brandon Vera's a lose-lose for Shogun.
No, and Brandon Vera has a name. Teixeira is an awesome fighter with no name. Who you beat, it makes no difference. And if he beats you, you just lost to a no-name guy and made him.
Either way,
no one in 205 wants to fight him. No one who's established wants to fight that dude right now.
I want Glover Teixeira to fight James Tahuna since Brandon Vera's out of that fight with James Tahuna now. So James Tahuna versus Glover Teixeira, make it happen. I'm calling it now, actually. I think that fight will happen.
Are you trying to start a war with the entire continent of Australia? Because I think that's what would happen. I think Glover would destroy Tahuna so much that it would start a mini war.
No, that's the thing. I love James Tahuna. After watching the Aaron Rosa fight, and then when they said James Tahuna was going to fight Brandon Vera, I was like, holy shit! Like, Brandon Vera might get his head knocked off, but at the same time, that was a losable fight for Tahuna. But at the same time, he hits like a truck. He gave Alexander Gustafsson trouble. But Tahuna versus Teixeira, two sluggers, I think that'd be an awesome fight.
Okay, fair enough.
Book
it.
Book it.
Let's talk real quick about some of these other injuries. Just high-profile injuries. Thiago Silva is injured and out of his fight, obviously against Shogun, so that's when Shogun got moved to the UFC on Fox 4. Thiago Alves is injured and got replaced by some no-name dude. Vitor Belfort, probably the next highest highest profile injury is Vitor Belfort being out of his UFC 147 bout against
Wanderlei Silva, replaced with Rich Franklin for the worst pay-per-view in the Zuffa era.
Ever. Tommy, worst UFC pay-per-view ever, UFC 147?
Absolutely. I mean, it just, that thing got torn apart so many times. It's so unfortunate that it ended up this way. But yeah, I cannot remember a card that's been that just butchered to death. I mean, it's going to do terrible numbers.
They were saying,
will it do fewer than 200,000?
Yes, that's.
Think so? It might, right?
Yeah, Untethered. Yes, on yesterday's episode of Untethered, they kind of debated about how badly the numbers were going to be for UFC 147. In case anybody is kind of perplexed by why we were saying this, originally this was supposed to be one of the best cards of the year. I mean, this was a card everybody was looking forward to. It was going to be headlined by Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 2, and then the co-main event was going to be Vitor Belfort versus Wanderlei Silva. After what is, I actually haven't been watching, but people are saying that this is the Brazilian Ultimate Fighter that's going on right now. Is one of the best Ultimate Fighter seasons in a very, very, very long time.
Really?
Yes, people are saying
no idea.
It's amazing. And you can watch it online, but they will be replaying it on full TV.
It's okay, David doesn't have fuel anyway.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have full TV, so... but it is going to be replaying on there. But you can go online and watch old episodes of the show. I think UFC.com should have directions to it. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's UFC.tv.
It's a real shame that this card has gone this way because for some reason, like, no matter the card, like whether it be UFC 119, which was Mir versus Crow Cop, 108, which was Rashad versus Thiago Silva, card. 109, which was, that stretch from like 108 to 109, 110, and then right in that area where we didn't have a title fight for 6 or 7 events. For some reason, I had no qualms about buying the pay-per-view. I was like, you know what? I'm a loyal fan. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy it no matter what. I mean, 108 and 109 were both...
You bought Crow Cop Mir?
Yes, I did. That one was not enjoyable. That was one of the worst purchases I've ever made.
Awful pay-per-view.
That was really bad. I did not buy that one.
Yeah. Anyways, but like I said, despite the fact that no matter how weak a card appeared, I had no problem buying it. I will in no way spend any, I wouldn't pay cover to walk into a bar. I wouldn't pay a $5 cover to walk into a bar to watch UFC 147. That's how bad
I'm willing to stand outside and look in through the window and watch it at a bar. Are you willing to do that? We don't even pay the cover. We just stand outside and just kind of watch it.
He's willing to watch it on free TV.
I think they should make the card free. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too.
How they didn't make that adjustment, I don't know how they did. I don't know if it was if they already had some sort of deal with whoever they're running their pay-per-view through, whether that was already set up.
I think it's more like FX doesn't want to put it on Saturday night.
Yeah, because they're not stupid.
FX probably gets better ratings from whatever else they've got going on.
FX got the movies, so they can't be messing around.
FX, that's some.
But that was someone made that point that FX was FX probably already has their programming set. There's no way in hell Fuel TV has some awesome thing that they're going to be showing on TV.
I'm sure they could show it on Fuel, but
exactly. Well, that's what you and I were talking about. That's what you and I were talking about. That, David, is if they put it on, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't you I was talking about. Anyways, we were talking about if they put it on Fuel TV, they might get more viewers on Fuel than they do get pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I think they will.
It'll be very, very close.
I think they will. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how they justify making this, continuing this being a pay-per-view. And you're looking at the card that they have right now. They have 1, 2, 3, 4.
They totally overlooked it last week.
They have 6 bouts for this card, and 2 of them can't actually be confirmed yet because they're waiting for the finale or the finals, final matchups for the Ultimate Fighter. So the Brazil season is middleweights and featherweights. So they're waiting to find out who the other 2. They have 2 finalists right now, and they're just waiting for the other 2. But the other names on the card, who. Hell if I know who these people are. And the only other fight on the card that might even be worth a hill of beans is Fabricio Verdum versus Mike Resau, which I thought was a horrible matchup to begin with, because Mike Resau has some of the most boring fights in the heavyweight division, with the only exception, in my opinion, being the one against Todd Duffy, where he somehow managed to knock Todd Duffy out after being beat up for
awesome.
2.5 rounds. It was a great comeback. Absolutely fantastic comeback. But Mike Resau against Verdum, I hope Verdum just gets the fight over with quickly. We might be surprised.
I'm not sure I'd watch this on free TV.
I don't know. I'm not even sure I'd follow along like on Twitter. I don't know. It's
wow. The funny thing is that, like, because Fuel TV has been doing that UFC replay where they're replaying recent cards, they might just play the card the next day because it's bad.
I think they should. I think that is the only way to kind of like try and recoup losses through like advertisers, is just to immediately replay it on free TV the next day.
They did that with one card. I think it was UFC 100, which was a complete opposite situation. But like UFC 100 did really well, and then I think like 3 or 4 days later, they played the entire event on Spike.
Wow, I don't even remember that. But I don't watch.
Recall that happening, sir.
Oh,
I know because I remember that
shenanigans on that.
No, I remember that because I missed UFC 100 because I was during the summers I was working at a bar in Ocean City, Maryland. So like my Saturday nights were non-existent. Like I was at work, and so I missed the event and ended up having to watch it at a friend's house on his computer like 2 days later. But I remember anytime it was slow, I would put it on Spike TV just in case any fights were on, and they played the entire event.
It's crazy talk, man. I like it. Though.
Yeah, because I remember talking to a guy, he was freaking out because Brock Lesnar was fighting. He had no idea Brock Lesnar had fought 5 or 6 days before, and I'm just like, oh, no, actually just watch what happens right here, and then he starts pounding Mir's face in.
That was such an amazing card. Oh, still one of my favorite cards, except for that fucking GSP fight. Goddamn GSP. You do know how to turn a great moment into a piece of shit. But
God, he's pretty though.
He is a pretty man. He's even
now.
pretty.
There's talk he's not going to be even back in November.
Oh, Jesus.
When do you strip him of the title? I mean, this is.
I think
like
you've
2
said
years
this
already, right?
You've said this before, David. I think
a
year. I think a year is really when they should do it. A year from when he's completely inactive. So,
it's like 2 years, right? When was this guy's last fight? Price.
Shields.
Jake Shields.
The end of 2010.
No, that was 2011. Right?
Yeah, because he fought Koscheck in December of 2010. So Shields, I think, was in February or March or April of 2011. So, I mean, it's been well over a year since he fought, but...
More like a year and a half probably at this point, and who knows when he's going to fight again.
Yeah, he fought at UFC 129, and that was April 30th, 2011. So, yeah, it's over a year now. I think it's time to strip that title, baby. Strip that title. Yeah, it's
you just want to say strip and GSP in the same sentence.
I kind of do. Yeah, I really kind of do. I don't know. I'm mad that you called me out like that, though, but I totally do.
If GSP asked me on a date, would I say no? I don't think so.
You know, it's funny. Did you listen to Untethered yesterday?
Oh, with that whack job on there?
First off, that was the greatest episode ever of anything. The
author?
Yes, what the hell was it? Michelle Lopez, who I don't really understand the entire story. All I can really glean from the whole situation was that she's been kind of stalking Roger Huerta, and something happened, and now she's going to write this, I guess, tell-all book about Roger Huerta. And
okay, there are 2 parts of her story that I was just like, okay, I'll give you the quick and dirty answer to both of your quandaries right here. One, she was saying she was on the phone with him at one point and they got disconnected and they didn't get to continue their conversation. Okay, I was thinking about this immediately when she said that. I was like, anytime I'm disconnected off of a phone call, what do? You call that person back immediately. Try and get the phone call back. But like she was just like, oh, we lost the phone call, and that's the way the conversation ended. It's like, no, he hung up his phone and then he changed his number. 2, he was talking about like, oh yeah, we were having dinner, and then for some reason I walked out, and I don't really remember why I walked out. It was like, no, you showed up at a place because you're a professional stalker, apparently. You showed up at a place where he was trying to have a meal with friends or by himself or something after his fight, just trying to hang out. You showed up, and he was just like, who the fuck are you? Get the fuck out of here. And you got kicked out of whatever bar or restaurant he was at. And that's why it wasn't a personal choice for you to leave. You got escorted out because you're a weirdo.
She is an absolute weirdo. The best part, though, is, and Tommy, I don't know if you're up to date on this.
Oh, she has to go on Tommy Toll.
Yeah, I feel
I
like
am not up to date on this. This is actually the first I'm hearing of this stuff.
Yeah, so her name is Michelle Lopez, and actually you can listen to yesterday's broadcast of the Untethered MMA podcast, and I'll send you the link when we get off here. But so they open up the show. We have 2 shirts to give away from Combat Factory on yesterday's show. So as the show starts up, the guys are like, oh, well, we're not really sure how we're going to give away these shirts. And I believe it was Matt Roth who brought it up and said, hey, how about this? This crazy broad named Michelle Lopez is going to write this book about Roger Huerta. And there's a piece in there about how she walked out of a dinner. And to win a T-shirt, we want you to call in and tell us in your mind what happened to make her walk out of this dinner. That was the thing. And apparently she got caught wind of the show and called into the show. And
oh, wow.
Matt Roth interviews her right on the spot. And and he holds no punches. As a matter of fact, Derek Sabotecki made no qualms about the fact that he was not happy about her being on there. And so when they get off the phone with
Fagan was tweeting that he had to mute his mic because he was laughing so hard.
Yeah. So as soon as she gets off the phone, these guys continue for another, I would say, what would you say, Justin, another 20 minutes about Matt Roth getting a date with her, and then her possibly dating Derek Sabotecki. And they literally...
Yeah, because apparently she's out in Colorado, which is where Derek's at.
Yeah, they just kept going around about, which one of them
if you're a fighter or if you have a fighter's body.
Yes. Who she would fuck and,
she's
and all
to
this
fuck
stuff.
You, apparently.
And the best part is the broad had gone onto the Facebook page and was listening live after she had gotten off the phone with them. So she heard all of that and didn't find anything wrong with it. I mean, she was laughing. She thought it was funny.
Holy shit.
She tweeted Roger Huerta and War Machine. It was like, oh, this is funny. Isn't this a great little thing that I did? I don't think she's 100% there. As a,
what does a fighter's body even mean? I mean, I could look like Roy Nelson. I mean, okay.
They brought up Tim Sylvia.
Yeah, I feel like that.
You know what she meant. Come on.
I mean, but we can take her literally, can't we, David? Can't we take her literally and say, there's a spectrum
definitely
between...
not take this woman literally.
I don't think we should take this woman anywhere.
She might be arrested immediately.
But you have to check it out, Tommy. It is an absolute fabulous show, and she is a train wreck, and it made it that much better. And we put it on. I put it on YouTube, and it's already almost 270 views on it. From
Tommy, if you put her on your show, she might start stalking you. So maybe you should.
No, don't
think about
do
this.
that. No.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
I'm not
good.
even kidding. If she apparently found the untethered guys.
Yes. So I don't know how she managed to do that, but oh wow! I just got a text message from Gracie, and she says she is the blonde Michelle Lopez. Dominic Cruz better watch out.
Oh no!
Oh Jesus Christ! Dominic, watch out for Gracie.
This poor guy's convalescing. I'm having images of misery.
Yes. I imagine it's going to turn.
I'm your biggest fan.
Yes.
Yeah, he's already been hobbled.
Yes.
Looks like you're recovering. We might have to smash that leg.
He's pre-hobbled, so she won't even have to go through all of that right now. All right, so
she'll have to. He might decide to leave.
And just real quick, another high-profile injury was John Fitch. John Fitch is out of his fight as well.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, and this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. These are just names that I wrote down kind of just randomly that I thought had the most importance with them, at least right now, of injuries. And we've talked about injuries before on the show, We've talked with trainers on the show and why they think these injuries are occurring. And I don't think there should be a question that it has to be the training, that they're not training properly for fights, and that's why they're getting injured. And I like when Wanderlei Silva found out that Vitor Belfort broke his hand. He was like, how the fuck do you break your hand during training? What are you doing to break your hand during training? You shouldn't be, whatever you're doing. He shouldn't be sparring that hard, though. Like,
yes, he should.
No, I disagree.
Yeah, you have to get ready.
I disagree that sparring hard like that to the point where you break your fucking hand is getting you ready. If anything, it's getting you out of the fight.
Well, I mean, you break your hand. That happens. You're not going to be pulling punches. Guys go all out. I mean, there's something to be said for that. There's also, I heard an interesting theory that the guys getting hurt are guys not using PEDs, trying to keep up with the guys who are using. And because when you use, you can train harder and longer. And you know, perfect setup.
Damn it.
But I thought that was interesting. Because when you're reading off the names, they're names that aren't necessarily guys that you would think, and you really can't tell who's doing what.
Yeah, that's very true. That's true. But
no,
you have a good point.
Like, David, I put this on your Facebook page, and the Untethered guys talk about it yesterday. I think the implemented insurance policy is. I don't think it.
Sure.
I think that's a fantastic thing that they implemented at the UFC, because it's not fair to guys who are making peanuts to have to cover, ACLs and all those kind of medical expenses, especially when we heard stuff like Joe Stevenson, when he was still in the UFC, was going down to Tijuana to get medications and that sort of stuff because you got health insurance. So I like the idea that they're allowing the UFC to cover these medical costs and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it results in guys probably dipping out of fights a lot faster or for less serious injuries than they would have in the past. Whereas, oh my God, 10 years ago they strained their shoulder or strained their knee, and they're like, man, I probably shouldn't take this fight, but I've got to pay my rent, all my bills, I've got to pay my trainers and my coaches, I've got all these expenses, I got to take this fight. Whereas now they're like, well, you know what, I can afford not to take this fight because I don't have to cover the medical expenses now. You know what, I've got a strained knee, I'll go ahead and wait till I'm at least, 95% instead of walking at the cage at like 75 or 80%.
Yeah, and every guy fights a little hurt. It's part of the game. It's part of the training. I mean, I do agree that you're going to get hurt during training. It's just the name of the game. It's the kind of sport that it is. You can't help it. But I do think that guys are not training properly for their fights, resulting in a lot of these injuries. And the insurance policy definitely, I think it makes it easier for guys to drop out of fights. Matter of fact, Matt Roth said yesterday that he would he wants to get rid of it and then stop paying fighters really well so that they're all really hungry to fight, and so we don't get any more people dropping out of fights.
Oh yeah, he said he wanted everyone eating rice and ketchup like Pat Barry was.
He's kind of a dick, but that's why we love him. It's really unfortunate that we're being faced with all these injury bugs right now, and I don't really foresee these changing anytime soon until training methods have kind of caught up to what these guys are doing, and somehow allowing them to still train hard, but with less risk of injury. So.
I think that's a line that fighters are still trying to determine, because you hear so much about the fighters that aren't full-time fighters that have a second job, guys like Shane Carlin or maybe Chris Lytle or anybody else who has just like that daytime job and then they go train at night and that sort of thing, where those guys get a lot of criticism for not being full-time fighters and not training all the time, because you've got guys like Cain Velasquez and Josh Koscheck where all they do is train. So I think there's that pressure to be constantly training, but I don't think that some people are understanding the line between training, being a full-time fighter, and training full-time to overtraining. I think there's a really thin line right there, and I think too many guys are crossing it. I think that's where a bulk of injuries are happening.
Yeah, I can agree with
that. Well, and the other thing is, MMA is such a relatively new, I would say, streamlined sport to where it's becoming more, I should say, in the mainstream. So, like with football, it's been around for forever. The techniques have been refined. People understand a little bit better how to train without getting hurt, and same with other sports. And I think they haven't really caught up with, all the other mainstream sports because it's not getting as much attention and it hasn't been around as long.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will get to that point. And I think we'll probably reach that point a lot faster than other sports reach that point, if that makes sense. At this point there have been, they're not really trying to reinvent the wheel here. I think they can probably borrow techniques from other sports to help with certain techniques that they're practicing and be able to mash them all together and create a training regimen that accomplishes just that, Tommy, and that is being able to train to their fullest extent with, without that risk of breaking your fucking hand, which again, I'm like, I don't know. Whatever, dude. Although we do hear about like baseball players like pulling muscles playing the Wii and shit like that. So, injuries can happen. So, injuries can happen. You got to be careful. Although I think it's a good point.
Like you were just saying, Erica, Mariano Rivera, who's a relief pitcher for the New York Yankees, blew out his ACL catching fly balls during pregame warm-ups. There's a video of it where he's in the outfield catching fly balls, and he just trips, and you can completely see his knee explode. And it's like, why in the hell is your reliever catching fly balls in the outfield?
And that's just a great example of you got to be careful when you're doing stuff like that. And I think it's funny that the UFC rewards their fighters with motorcycles when a lot of other sports organizations have clauses in their contracts with their athletes kind of curtailing any kind of activities, knowing that it can cause severe injury. I'm looking at you, Frank Mir. And I think it's funny that the UFC on one hand seems to take this injury thing really seriously, and then they throw a motorcycle at their guys, at the tough winners and at the tough coaches, so that they can go out and have fun and possibly get severely
hurt.
Yes, get really.
Yeah, I took issue with so many people having problems with that. Specifically, Tomas Rios was making a lot of really negative comments after the guy who won tough. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Mike Chiesa.
What's that?
I think it's pronounced Chiesa.
Okay, Chiesa. They get Chiesa in favor. They both give him motorcycles afterwards, and immediately, my immediate reaction was to be like, oh my God, what an awesome story. Chiesa lost his father. No one picked him to win the show. Pretty much I don't think anyone really picked him to beat Iaquinta. And then he comes out and chokes him out, puts him to sleep in the first round. And it's an absolutely awesome story. You want to talk about that. You feel for the guy who left the house for a couple of days to go to his dad's funeral, and then comes back and wins this tournament-style show, and, wins this, semi-prestigious title in the UFC. And guys like Tomas Rios are freaking out that they're giving him a motorcycle. And I understand that there's some issues because the name is slipping my mind, but David, maybe you can help me with this. Very talented and high-level boxer was recently involved in a motorcycle accident and is now paralyzed.
Yeah, Paul Williams.
Yeah, Paul Williams. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's now paralyzed.
That's horrible. Oh, God. Horrible story.
So Rios is freaking out at the idea that they're giving him this motorcycle where, Williams has been involved in this accident and is now paralyzed. But I think people are digging a little too deep into that decision, where it's like, okay, how long has Harley Davidson been a sponsor of the UFC? No one had a problem with the fact that Chris Lytle got a motorcycle for choking out Dan Hardy.
They announced it on the show before Paul Williams even got into his crash. I think they mentioned on the show that the winner and the coach would get motorcycles.
Right, and it all has to do with the
They
sponsors.
get motorcycles almost every season, don't they? I mean, sometimes it's cars and sometimes it's motorcycles. But the problem is
I don't understand why people have to dissect and kill the awesome moment that it was with Chiesa winning this. You know, despite the fact that he had gone through the loss of his father and all this, trials and tribulations of the show, he came on and win. But no, we're going to criticize the UFC because they gave him a motorcycle. I mean, like, Jesus Christ,
I can
MMA
agree that
media, chill out.
The timing is probably really bad, and if anything, the MMA media is really good at talking way too much about absolutely nothing. But you have to give it that giving them a motorcycle is, riding a motorcycle.
It may not be a great idea. Actually.
Yeah, it's a high risk activity. I mean, you are less safe on a motorcycle than you are in a car. If they want to give them a car, give them a car. I don't have a problem with that. Give them a fast fucking car. I don't care. Give them a car and let Johnny Bones
But then at the same time,
drive.
you have to, if you are going to completely eliminate, if you're worried about giving guys motorcycles because you're afraid they're going to injure themselves, then you got to put in your contract, okay, as a UFC fighter, you cannot own a motorcycle.
But that was the point.
To encourage it.
Yeah, that some sports organizations have clauses in the contracts with their athletes, actually along those lines. For forbidding them from doing certain high risk activities and putting limitations on ones that may not be quite as high risk as others. Like, you're not going to hear about a star quarterback skydiving. I mean, it's just not going to happen because it's probably in his contract that he can't do stuff like that. It
makes complete sense, actually.
So
my issue is that yes, you're probably like hundreds of times more likely to injure yourself doing stuff like riding a motorcycle or skydiving or bungee jumping or that sort of thing. But guess what? You're like we keep hearing about these ridiculous injuries of the guys on trampolines, guys falling, getting out of hot tubs. I mean, you can't prevent every single solitary injury, and you can't put someone in a cage and be like, okay, because you're working for me, you can't do X, Y, and Z. Like, I mean, you can't do that. You can't tell someone that they
I
can't
disagree.
live their life
I think
a
you
certain way.
can. I think they're investments for your organization. I think you are more than at right to do that. I mean, if I owned a sports organization, no matter what the sport is, football, I think we can all agree that football is probably and more likely more dangerous than MMA. And they have all these kinds of clauses in their contracts preventing them from doing stuff like this. So why don't the MMA fighters have that in their contracts? Especially when we have stuff like this that's happening with all these injury bugs, which thankfully up to this point have all been related to training. But, it's just kind of ironic that the UFC is giving them motorcycles. I mean...
Well, I think the difference there is the amount of the investment. When we're talking about football players, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, whereas there's only maybe the top 1% to 2%, if even that, of the UFC roster is getting paid over $100,000. So when we're talking about a guy who is making, $10,000 to show, $10,000 to win, and he's fighting maybe 3 times a year, I mean, is the investment worth putting the restriction on?
But I think proportionally it is, though. I mean, if you you're talking about football players that make tens of millions of dollars for an organization that makes billions of dollars, and then we say the UFC makes millions of dollars. Of course, these guys are making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I can see where you're coming with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still proportionally. You're still, they're still at the same amount of risk. It's just that on paper, these guys are making the same amount of money. I mean, I'm not saying that they can dictate what they do in their free time 100%. And I think sometimes the NFL, and NBA and MLB try a little bit too hard to actually do that with their athletes. And that's obviously because they were higher profile. And again, kind of like what you just pointed out, that they make more money, so there's a higher responsibility on them.
Well, and I think, Erica, you just raised the point right there, is where the NFL and the NBA and other major organizations are really worried about how guys appear not only on the field and on the court, but off the field and off the court as well. And I think the UFC is trying to give themselves this kind of image that while they want these guys to, come across as composed athletes, I don't think they want to come across as an organization that is hamstringing their athletes athletes into saying what they can and cannot do. I think they're trying to be a little more free-spirited, for lack of a better term, because I think that's kind of where the fan base kind of falls into as well.
Yeah, well, at least the current fan base does, and we actually have kind of seen a little bit of a change, where they're trying to be, especially with the deal with Fox when it went through, where we were seeing the UFC trying to be a little bit more strict, especially about the social media tools that they're using, and trying to put a kibosh on.
Oh, if this thing's going to go on there and drop, like, slurs about homosexuals and that kind of stuff, I have a huge problem with that. But telling Michael Bisping he can't ride a motorcycle, I I do have a problem with.
Oh, wow. I mean...
Well, I don't know. I think they would do well to imitate the big boys. I mean, they are trying to expand the sport, and like we said, the current fan base may not care as much, but I think if you're going to grow into one of these legitimate powerhouse sports, you've got to do like they do. And yes, the fighters aren't getting paid that much, but you also have to look at what the UFC invests in advertising fights and things like that. So if your main event turns out to be Brandon Vera versus Joe Schmo, well, you guys lost a lot of money because somebody crashed their motorcycle into a hot tub or something. So
my issue with that is that I'm kind of tired of hearing the UFC needs to conduct themselves better if they want to become as big as the NFL and the NBA and that kind of stuff. I think everyone who believes that the UFC is going to become that big is just having delusions of grandeur. I do believe that the UFC is probably peaked in terms of popularity. It could probably have another boom period with a new set of stars, but with the loss of guys like Tito Ortiz kind of falling off, Chuck Liddell retiring, Randy Couture's gone, GSP hasn't been around as much, BJ Penn's kind of on the way out. Without those guys, I think we're waiting on a new crop of stars, so the popularity is kind of leveling out. And Dana White has all the faith in his product in the world, which is something that you want your president of the company to have. But at the same time, he needs to be realistic. Well, you're not going to put a UFC program on Fox, and it's not going to get the same amount of viewers as a playoff baseball game or a playoff NHL game even. It's not going to be more popular than soccer, no matter if you call soccer players pussies or whatever. So to treat the UFC like it's the NFL, I think is, or the MLB or the NBA or the NHL or any major sports organization, I think is kind of, jumping the gun, because the UFC is not there, nor do I think the UFC will ever reach that point.
Well, so here's my only problem with that way of thinking, and I think that's self-sabotaging yourself. You're saying, well, we'll never reach this certain point, so why should we try? And I think they should still try. There's a saying that says...
No, I'm not saying that they shouldn't try to reach that point.
But there are certain things you have to do, though, in order to legitimately give it a go. And there's a saying that says, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And the UFC is currently dressing for the job they have when they should be dressing for the job that they want. And they want to be as big as the NFL. They won't, I agree with you, they'll never reach that point, but I think they can be better than what they are. And by not actually conducting themselves in a certain way, that they'll never reach that point. They'll never reach their actual their actual peak if they continue to dress the way that they are. And that's they dress like,
but I think the UFC is kind of
scrubs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that I think the UFC has kind of, it's found its niche as almost a counterculture kind of thing, where, the NFL is, the kind of thing that father, son, grandfather, and all those, your entire, generations of your family can all sit down together and watch, a football game on Thanksgiving. And everyone will have their team and everyone will root for it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the UFC has a very specific demographic, and I think that at one point they were very good at keying in on that demographic and pushing for it and winning that demographic. But now I think because of those views of not necessarily, I don't think they're I don't know if it's whether they think they're as big as the NFL or whether they're trying to conduct themselves or whether they're trying to get to that point. My issue is why mess with a good thing when you're putting on shows and keying in on this demographic and winning? And that's why the Spike shows, did so well because Spike is directed at that demographic, and that's maybe why the Ultimate Fighter on FX isn't doing so well, because FX has gotten to be more well known for, not necessarily its movies, but its original programming, like Sons of Anarchy.
Which is all edgy, kind of male-dominated kind of programming. So I think that's the thought process behind that. But I had a really cute story to tell you, because I almost forgot when you brought up Tito Ortiz. So when we had Dave Meltzer on last time, and he made the comment that if casual audiences don't know who Tito Ortiz is, the UFC is in serious trouble. And it's funny. I hung out with a bunch of people that I met on Meetup. It was like a dorky kind of gaming group. It was probably about a dozen of us there. Maybe a little bit.
Was on there?
I wish. That would have been awesome. They had no idea. They would have not had any idea who that was. But we decided to watch Zombie Strippers. You ever seen that movie, Zombie Strippers? Zombie Strippers. Anybody?
First 10 minutes. I saw the first 10 minutes of it.
It's actually not a bad zombie movie. It's definitely very cheesy.
I haven't seen it. I've been watching The Cell on repeat since you guys mentioned it. So.
I rewatched it, and it is an excellent. I'm not going to re-argue.
God, what a terrible movie that is.
Oh my God.
So they decided to sit down and watch Zombie Strippers, and Zombie Strippers for me says Tito Ortiz, even though he only has like literally maybe 4 lines in that movie, but I remember people saying, hey, Tito Ortiz is in this movie with Jenna Jameson, and then of course Jenna Jameson ended up being his girlfriend and all this stuff. So as Tito Ortiz comes on the screen, I go, Tito Ortiz, and they all stared at me blankly, and I said, you have no idea who Tito Ortiz is, do you? And they all looked at me and said, nope, who is he? My point exactly. None of them, not one of them had a fucking clue who Tito Ortiz was. Not a one. Not even like an inkling, like somebody like, oh, I've kind of heard the name. None of them knew who he was. So, the fact that I was in a group of, maybe 12 to 15 people and none of them knew who Tito Ortiz was except for me, I think that speaks a lot. But, that's anecdotal at best. But I thought it was funny, considering that it happened like right after we had that interview with Dave Meltzer. All right, let's move on real quick. And Tommy, do you play video games? Are you a video gamer?
Oh, hell yeah.
So, how excited are you about the new EA deal with UFC? Are you excited about it? Do you think it's a good move?
I'm kind of torn. I really liked UFC Undisputed 3. I thought THQ was starting to do good, but I totally understand the move because THQ is really falling on hard times. And, EA is huge. How do you not make a deal with them? But I didn't ever play EA's MMA game, but I heard it was okay. I just hope it doesn't get into the point like it is with Madden and EA where, it does well on its own and they don't really need to improve it ever, so they just kind of leave it how it is. So I'm kind of excited, but I'm still going to keep my copy of UFC Undisputed 3 just in case.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the disputed games definitely by and large are more designed for the hardcore MMA fan, whereas the EA games are kind of pick up and go kind of thing. So I'm with you, Tommy. I have the first Undisputed, which I still play, and I would definitely hold on to those games more so than get into any of the EA stuff.
That game helped end my marriage.
Oh my God!
I'm not even kidding. I'm not fucking kidding at all.
Oh my God!
You think I'm kidding? It wasn't the central thing, but it helped.
It helped. It helped move things along a little bit.
Oh, it helped. Oh God, when I was playing at like 3 a.m.
Oh my God. I like to pop it in with my 4-year-old nephew. Sometimes he wants to play something that's a little bit more edgy than like Ratchet and Clank. And at one point we used to play Uncharted together. He always asked me, let's play Uncharted. But then he went to school and told people he was going to like blow him up or something. And so I had to stop doing that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
He's like, he's 4. He's 4 and a half. And he really liked the Uncharted games. I wouldn't actually let him play. I'd give him a controller that wasn't turned on.
He's now on the no-fly list.
Yes. Apparently he's very close to being on the no-fly list at least. So,
yeah, thanks, Bin Laden.
So what I did was kind of an in-betweener. I put in the Undisputed games and I let him play that game. It's kind of violent, but really he can't. There's not really, other than the guys getting really sweaty and maybe bleeding a little bit out of their noses and mouths. It's not too bad. So I let him play that, and he hits the buttons. And mostly he just punches and kicks his opponent, or mostly low kicks, and kind of a a medium punch his opponents to death, but he has a lot of fun playing that. But I actually really liked the EA MMA game, and what I liked about it, I think the stand-up system in Undisputed is much better than what EA MMA was, but I think the ground game was vastly better in the EA game, only because you have to be able to kind of appease those people that are going to pick up the game for a novelty's sake. They've heard of UFC, they like video games, they like fighting games, they'll pick it up. But if the grappling system is so complicated as it is in Undisputed, you're going to lose a lot of people. And I thought the EA one was complicated enough that you felt like you had to master something in it, but it wasn't so complicated that, like me, I'm the kind of person, if it gets a little too hard for me, fuck it, I beat the game. That's as far as I'm concerned. So I do. I wish I could tell you how many games I've played that I'm like, fuck it, I beat the game. Who cares? But
ever since I started, my roommate was moving in with his girlfriend, so I just moved into my own place. I can't tell you the amount of time I played. Like, my video game hours went up, like, exponentially, like, living by myself, because I'm just like, well, I don't have anyone to talk to, and there's not a UFC on. I guess I'll play 6 hours of Call of Duty or something.
Oh, well, yes. See, I think that's a perk of...
you should be training.
Of living by... Oh, yeah. David...
God, you're right. David, you're right.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Way to call me out. I have been going to the gym more. I have shed a few pounds. I will say that.
Good for you.
That's great.
I couldn't have felt fatter in Vegas. It was awful. All those super tiny, skinny bitches. I wanted to throw each and every one of them like into the road, and they're all walking around in like bikini tops. I'm like, fuck you, bitch.
That sounds like an awesome movie. Someone just comes to Vegas all pissed off that
the best
chicks are hot and he starts assaulting them left and right.
I really did want to. I think
that's just an episode of Cops in Vegas.
I think it is. You guys would have seen me like live on Cops, like getting arrested. Like, fuck that bitch in her bikini top, looking like a
Wayne
slut.
Brady gonna have to choke a bitch?
Exactly. Oh, fucking Vegas. But okay, let's go ahead and move on to our UFC on FX 3 predictions, because I do want David.
You have fuel. The fuel card has already started.
Yes, the fuel card has already started.
I mean, come on, what's the odds that any of our listeners will have fuel? I mean, we don't have that many listeners, and I think
it's safe to say that at least 1 out of 15 will have fuel. So,
do we have 15 listeners?
We have
live. I'm not sure we do.
We have at least a solid 16. So,
including the 3 or 4 of us here.
Nailed it.
Excellent. So
yeah, Tommy's over here talking about, oh yeah, I got like 20,000 viewers, and we're just like, yeah, we got 16.
I'm happy with it. It's all right. What Tommy doesn't know is I'm going to start commenting on his videos.
We're not hating on you, Tommy. We're just a little jealous.
It's all right, man.
I'm going to start.
We're trying to ride your coattails.
I'm going to start leaving negative comments.
Podcast hour.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to start putting the FanAddicts MMA show at the end of the Tommy Toehold show.
Can we have Nick Diaz at the beginning of our show?
Nick, you want?
What's that?
Yeah. Nick Diaz intro for us from Tommy Toehold.
That's all we want is Nick Diaz.
That's all we ask.
The thing that Nick Diaz may be high all the time, but his lawyer's not. So that would probably be a bad idea.
Shit.
Fans are.
That's true. That's very true. All right, so let's start at the bottom of the main card. We're all going to do the main card. Tommy, I'm going to start with you. Scott Jorgensen versus Eddie Wineland is opening up the UFC on FX 3 card that starts tonight. I believe 8 o'clock is when it starts on FX. I think this is an interesting matchup, but give me your thoughts on this matchup. And we commented on it earlier. Do you think it has any significance, any kind of importance that comes along with it?
A little bit. I mean, I think it's a great way to start the card. Both of the guys need wins, and I think it's going to go to decision. But I think it's going to be quite a show. So I think it's going to be good. As far as implications go, I don't know. I don't know if it's that important of a fight. I don't really think any of these are too important other than the main event. But I think it will be fun to watch. I predict a lot of stand-up. And I think it's going to end up with like a split decision win for Jorgensen. So that's what I'm picking.
All right, Justin. Or is TJ going to give this prediction? TJ, can you give this prediction? Jorgensen versus Wineland.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy pretty much nailed it on the head right there. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I think it's a really exciting way to open the fight, or to open the fight card. I don't know how much of it's necessarily going to be stand-up because I think Jorgensen has a significant ground advantage in terms of his wrestling. I was at I haven't seen, what Wineland's maybe 0-2 in the UFC right now, but losses to both Faber and Benavidez. I was live when he fought Faber, and pretty much got put on his back for the last 2 rounds, and that's how he lost the fight. So I think Jorgensen, if he can put Wineland on his back, that's where he's going to hold a significant advantage. If Wineland can manage to keep the fight standing, I think it'll be his fight. But Jorgensen's the kind of guy where he's going to beat the guys that he's supposed to beat, and he's going to lose to the guys he's supposed to lose to. And I don't think he's supposed to lose to Eddie Wineland. As much as I love Eddie Wineland, I think this is not a good fight for him, and I think Jorgensen's going to take him down repeatedly, grind out a decision.
And David, I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to you. What are your thoughts?
I don't have that many thoughts to add. I'm going to go with Jorgensen, but Eddie Wineland he hasn't looked bad in his UFC appearances.
No, I don't think he's looked horrible, but I just I agree with pretty much it seems like a pretty unanimous decision that Jorgensen's going to win this one. I think Jorgensen lost his last fight against it was Barral, right? Was that who he lost against?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got picked apart on the feet.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that he comes into this fight with something to prove over somebody like Eddie Wineland, like you pointed out, Justin, that he's supposed to beat. That he'll come in here and he'll look to actually finish this fight. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for I'm going to say a 3rd round stoppage for Scott Jorgensen. Real quick before we move on. My buddy on Twitter, MMA on the Reg, is telling me to give everybody a heads up to watch Lance Benoist versus Seth Boksinski. I'm actually a big Seth Boksinski fan. His last couple of fights in the UFC have been really impressive, and I think he's...
Yeah, and everyone should be watching out for Jared Papazian as well.
Yes. And
a friend of the show who actually called in when his opponent, Dustin Peg, stood us up.
Yeah, I'm still a little bitter about that. I'm trying to get over it. I'm still a little bitter about it, though.
I'm not over it. I'm hoping Papazian knocks his ass out.
Oh, damn, son.
TJ's here.
TJ is definitely here. So TJ says he wants Papazian to win his fight. I'm looking forward to Boksinski. Jesus, that's a fuck of a name. To win his fight against Lance Benoist. So look out for those 2 fights tonight. And I think that those will be like kind of our under the wire kind of recommendations for people out there looking to see something that may not be high pro, although the main card isn't quite high pro.
Yeah, really. Just watch the main card.
You asshole. I love it. All right. So next on the card we have Josh Neer versus Mike Pyle. I love Neer. I've always been a fan of Neer. He really likes to bring it, but they're putting him up against a wrestler. Christ. So I don't know. I have a feeling this fight is not going to go Neer's way. Pyle, I imagine Pyle is going to do his best to just grind out a really a smart but boring decision against Neer. What are your thoughts on this, Tommy?
Well, I do agree with you about Pyle's wrestling ability. However, he does get finished quite a bit, and Josh Neer can definitely finish people. So I think he's going to end up finishing him. I think he's going to catch him either at the beginning of the 2nd round or something when they're still standing, or sometime early in the 1st. But I think he's going to end up winning by KO.
Oh, I like that. I'm hoping for that. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to go Neer as well. Wink, wink.
Oh, that's awful. That is just fucking horrible.
Tommy, don't use that on your show at all. We're just letting you know in case you didn't catch that.
I give.
We're copywriting that shit.
Yeah, copyright. Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with Tommy on that one. Nier's another guy that I've seen fight live and seen fight several times, and I saw him get out wrestled by Kurt Pellegrino at UFC 101. Not necessarily thinking that Nier isn't a talented fighter, but Kyle's one of those kind of guys who, for some reason, has all the talent in the world, but seems to have a little trouble putting it together in the cage against upper level guys. And I don't think Nier quite touches that area fighter that's going to beat Pyle. So I think it's going to look very wrestling heavy. I think Pyle's going to look for the takedown, utilize his ground control. He's also very good with submission, so I think even with Nier throwing submissions off his back, I think Pyle's going to be smart enough to avoid them. So I'm looking for Pyle winning by decision.
Boring decision. David, I know you don't give a shit. But
I really don't, but I'm with Tommy on this one. I think he's near victory.
Oh, I like it.
Near victory. Don't use that either, Tommy. We'll come after you.
Trademark and copyright. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I think that it's very likely that Pyle is going to grind out a boring decision, like Justin says. But I am seriously hoping for Nier to win, either by an impressive submission or knock Pyle the fuck out. So next on the card, I actually think that this fight actually has a little bit more importance than the rest of them. Charlie Brenneman versus Eric Silva.
I can't wait.
Eric Silva has been fairly impressive so far. But David pointed it out that he hasn't really been up against really tough competition, and he hasn't had to be in the cage for more than like 40 seconds. So, Tommy, what are your thoughts on Brenneman coming in? Brenneman, of course, being a tough wrestler, very tough guy in general, but a tough wrestler coming in against Eric Silva.
Well, I guess I believe the hype because Charlie is a tremendous wrestler. I completely agree. But I think with Silva's submission game, I think he's a black belt, and his striking ability, I just think he's going to overwhelm him. I think he's going. I think even if he gets on his back, I think he'll be able to do well from his back. So I'm going to say early KO or submission for Silva.
All right, I like it, Justin or TJ.
This is the coin flip of the night for me. I really like Eric Silva. I think he's got a bright future at 170 in the UFC. I mean, we saw him, absolutely crush his opponent in his first UFC fight, and then the DQ loss to Carlo Frazier. I think most people will agree was kind of a BS DQ. I mean, we've seen enough guys have those incidental shots to the back of the head when they're looking to finish a fight. So I think most people are viewing Eric Silva as 2-0 in this fight, and I think that's why he got the step up in competition with Charlie Brenneman. The thing about Eric Silva is that we haven't, like you said, Eric, kind of like you said, Tommy, that we haven't seen him put on his back too often at all in the UFC, and we haven't seen him fight a grinder quite like Charlie Brenneman. The way I see Eric Silva's career, and maybe I could be completely wrong about this, I see him as being probably the next generation's Thiago Alves, whereas he's going to be an extremely talented stand-up fighter who's also competent on the ground, but he's going to have issues with guys who can take him down and grind him out. And I think that's the guy to beat him prototypically is a guy like Charlie Brenneman. So while I do think Silva will have his moments in this fight, ultimately I think Brenneman's wrestling is going to make a difference and he's going to win the decision.
Boo. David, tell me that you're at least hoping for something a little bit more exciting.
I'm hoping for something more exciting, but I agree with the ultimate outcome as far as Justin sees it. I think Brenneman's going to win this fight. If it goes more than a minute, I think Brenneman wins.
Boo. You know what? I'm actually going to go. I'm going to agree with Tommy on this one only because Eric Silva is not only a tough competitor, but he's very big for this division. And we saw that Charlie just had really serious problems with
Anthony Johnson.
Yes, I was going to say Fatso Johnson. She had really serious problems.
Anthony Johnson has made 170 more times in his career than he has made 185. Think about it.
Yes, it's actually kind of scary. I think he's just kind of, fucked his body up. Yeah, he just needs to fight at 205. Just give up and fight at 205.
Or just fight at heavyweight.
Yeah, or just fight as a heavyweight. F it. Just go for it, man. Just go for it. All balls out. Just eat all the burgers you want and just go for it. But
I will say, I just want to say something real quick, that the UFC is finally airing some sort of advertisement that for 147 that isn't Silva versus Belfort. They've just now started showing some advertisements that are Franklin versus Silva too. But at the same time, I think they pretty much given up on that card.
Yeah, it's kind of.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt the predictions, but I think that's a legitimate, probably a smart decision on their part. It's like we need to stop advertising for this card because no one's going to buy it, and why waste our money?
I think you're right. I think they need to stop wasting their money for that shit. They really do. Put that money in the bank. Buy a nice TV or something, because you're wasting it right now. You really are.
Buy John Jones a new Bentley.
Oh!
Snap!
Wow. Copyright and trademark. So.
Yeah, Tommy.
So, I think Brenneman's probably going to have problems with Silva's size and his aggression, and I'm going to go with an early stoppage for Silva. I think he's going to come in, he's going to swarm Brenneman. Brenneman's going to freak out. He's going to try and wrestle him, and he's going to end up. Silva's going to reverse him. Look at me, I'm getting real detailed. Silva's going to reverse him, and then end up on top in mounted position, and then just pound him out. That's my prediction. That's
what she said.
That wow. We have a lot of "that's what she said" jokes on here, but they're amazing, so I can't complain. All right, main event: Demetrius Johnson versus Ian McCall. Let's try this again, shall we? This is not going to be a 5-round.
Hopefully with some judges or officials who can
do this. Although I'm not very confident. They are in Florida. They have fucked up things before in the past. I won't say what they are, but they have. So at least there's no ballots involved with this one. So
there maybe has some hanging chads and such shit.
Yeah, if there's the black judge, they won't count his score.
Yes. And David, did you hear that part of the Untethered MMA podcast? It made me think of you immediately when they started talking about the Trayvon Martin case.
Oh, I heard it.
I thought it was.
I heard it.
Mike Fagan is amazing. I'm sorry. Mike Fagan tells it like it is. He was
Fagan called him a murderer, which is great, which is exactly what this piece of shit is.
Oh my God, stop this fight. Jesus, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. All right. So I thought that was amazing. So Demetrius Johnson and Ian McCall are trying this yet again. This is not a 5-round main event. This is a 3-round main event with a 4th round as an option should it become a draw. So they're doing the exact same thing they did before. I don't know why they just didn't make it a 5-round fight, but whatever.
Well, they got to treat every tournament fight equally. They can't. In case there was like a decision in the first fight, it would have been weird to kind of treat this fight with, special terms. So I agree with you. I think it should have been 5 rounds, but at the same time, they got to treat every fight equally.
Whatever, making sense and shit. Whatever. So they're coming here,
Warriors,
trying to get this shit done, trying to figure out who's going to face short and ugly Joseph Benavidez for the flyweight title. He is, man. I'm sorry. And I hope this does not get back around to him, because as short as he is, he still scares the piss out of me. But I ran into him at a bar one time, and I was like, first off, you don't even come to my boobs. You, come to my belly button. And you were just kind of an ugly dude. Like, really. Just
watch out. You're going to be having dreams that you're an Ultimate Fighter contestant, and he's coaching you.
Oh, God. And, picking me up above his head. It's going to look a lot like that scene in the second Austin Powers where, Mini-Me picks up Dr. Evil and, spins him around above his head. Yeah, it's going to look like that. It's going to be very, very awful. But, so they're trying this again, and there were so many mistakes made on the last time that they met. But it seems like McCall has a lot of people, based off the last fight, picking him to win this fight. What are your thoughts, Tommy? Do you think that Johnson's going to come out the winner in this one based off of the mistakes he might have made in their first fight? Or do you think McCall is going to really pour it on this time, having kind of already tested the best of Johnson?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm kind of one of those people. I mean, I really think Johnson is the better fighter, honestly, but I can't get the end of that fight out of my head. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just he has his number or what it is, but I think it's going to be another really close one. But I think Ian McCall won the first fight, or at least it should have gone to another round. And I think he's going to win this fight. I'm picking McCall for the decision victory.
All right, TJ, what are your thoughts? Are you going with the just to point out, Bloody Elbow, they do predictions on their website for every fight. Nobody picked Johnson to win this fight in their predictions.
I saw that, and I was kind of shocked by that.
So are you shocked enough to actually pick Johnson to win?
No. I do remember us talking about the first fight, and I do remember picking Johnson to win. But I also remember... I'm sorry, I'm crushing ice for a drink right now. I do remember saying that I thought McCall would shock people and make a name for himself in the UFC. I didn't necessarily think he would do it that big, but that's the way he did it. And I tend to think that McCall's confidence is up. I did read some things about him possibly having a bad weight cut, so that could make things a little squirrely. But Demetrius Johnson is an extremely talented fighter, but for some reason, like every time I watch him fight, I'm amazed by his speed, but at the same time, I'm not really impressed with anything else. So I do think McCall's the better wrestler. I do think McCall, once he gets comfortable, is going to be the better striker, and I think he's going to win a decision here.
All right, David. This is the one fight that you said has some sort of importance.
Oh, it's got a lot of importance.
So give us.
Man, I'm right. David, and I don't like fights.
That was TJ, not Justin. So don't get mad at Justin.
I do my own voices too.
I'm David, and I don't like meaningless fights. May as well be watching Bellator.
So, what are your thoughts, David? Do you think?
I might as well watch Brandon Vera fight.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Now you guys are getting personal.
You're gonna be saying that after Brandon destroys Shogun, everyone's gonna be kissing his ass.
David. I'm just here. I'm messing with you.
TJ's gonna be like, I knew Brandon was talented. I called it earlier in the evening.
Did I not say that I agreed with you about the Brandon Shogun fight? Did I not say that?
You did.
Okay, thanks.
But I'm not sure TJ agrees.
I agree. TJ seems to be quite the contrarian. So.
There seems to be a split personality here. And yeah, TJ is a bit of a contrarian.
We got
I hope he's not the one that's
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation going on.
Yeah, I hope TJ's not the one that's on the cast of Ultimate Fighter. That's all I could say.
Oh, I actually hope TJ is the one that's on the cast of the Ultimate Fighter.
He's going to end up fighting with people in the house.
It's going to be awesome. He's going to get drunk and destroy everything. It's been so long since we've seen a guy get drunk and destroy.
It could be like Junie Browning all over again.
Yeah, except I would recommend, if you can pass a message on to TJ for us, Justin, tell him not to tell the nurses in the hospital who's going to rape them. Apparently that is not a thing to say. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, I gotta take back my Christmas card.
It depends on the nurse. I think if you, let's say, set it to that stalker chick.
Michelle Lopez, yeah.
She might appreciate it if you have a fighter, if you're a fighter or have a fighter's body.
Yeah, didn't she say something about, okay, Tommy, this is how crazy this broad is. She said something about being raped by War Machine, but that it would be a hot rape scene.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, I forgot about that. She said, she was like, I wouldn't have sex with him, but if he tried to rape me, it would be like a hot rape scene.
Some chicks think that stuff.
That is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life.
No,
it's not the weirdest thing I've heard.
Well, that's scary, because that's got, I don't even want to know what you've heard.
I don't know what kind of bedtime stories your parents are telling you, but...
Oh, it wasn't from my parents.
That's some scary shit, man. I don't even want to know what that stuff was, because that is some weird ass
shit.
All right, Johnson or McCall, David, who are you picking?
I'm picking Mighty Mouse.
Oh, wow. Go ahead.
Yeah. Ooh, there it is.
Going with Johnson. Johnson didn't look... Ian McCall took over in I guess the last round in the last fight, but I don't know. Wow, Johnson was just so much more impressive at 135 than he was against Ian last time. But I'm going to take him for the win.
Fair
He
enough.
didn't have any remember Johnson did say he had issues with making weight because he was afraid he wasn't going to make 125, so he completely cut out carbs out of his diet. So that when
It might make no sense to take him really, but I'm going to go with him anyway.
Fair enough.
And that's
no.
really...
I don't think your pick is nonsensical at all. I think Johnson is an extremely talented fighter, and I think he's finally at a weight class that suits him. And he was good at 135. He's going to be great at 125. I just don't think he's going to win this fight.
I think McCall I don't know. McCall just seemed to really have his number their last fight. And
How can you lose a fight with that mustache?
That's true. How can you lose? Well, you can't lose any fight with that mustache. That's like, I don't know, giving
with
a
that
guy
nickname.
Or giving a guy a noogie in the middle of your fight and then losing it. Like those are things that you just shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Not that we know anybody who's ever done that.
Yeah, if anyone wants a good old Ian McCall fight, watch his fight with Ox Wheeler, where like literally before he finishes Ox Wheeler, like we saw it in the Johnson fight where he just kind of flexes and screams when he's got back control over Johnson. But no, he literally did that when he was standing above Cody Wheeler, flexed and screamed, and then like dropped a bomb on his face. It was awesome. I
love it. I'm really excited about this now. I have to pick McCall in this fight. I really think McCall might have underestimated Johnson's tenacity in their first fight. I think he knows now. I think he knows what Johnson has to offer. I think Johnson really did try and put 100% in there, and I don't think McCall did in that first fight. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight is McCall's going to come in here, and I think he might even get the stoppage win over Johnson in this fight. So I'm going McCall 100%. I'm going out there. I'm going dangerous, son. Dangerous.
Ooh.
All right, real quick before we close out the show, David, just give us your thoughts on tomorrow night's Pacquiao versus Bradley fight. And that, of course, is in Vegas at the MGM Grand, if I'm not mistaken. I seem to recall seeing that sign hanging outside the Grand while I was there. But they're saying that you said that tomorrow night might actually be a really competitive fight. What does that mean for people who are interested in watching the fight?
I think it will be a competitive fight. I'm still going to go with Pacquiao for the win, but Timothy Bradley is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in boxing today. And he's younger than Pacquiao. He's undefeated. He's actually gotten knocked down and hurt pretty badly and come back. He's shown lots of heart. I'm worried. He's a really good all-around fighter. I'm worried that if he's aggressive, that kind of plays into Pacquiao's style. Like when Pacquiao last fought, he fought Marquez for a third time, Juan Manuel Marquez, and I think he absolutely won this last fight as he won the two earlier fights and was denied victory again by the judges. But Marquez's style is to counterfight, and that really gives Pacquiao fits. And I think if Timothy Bradley decides to box, it could be a very competitive fight, and he really might spoil any plans for a Mayweather Pacquiao. The longer we wait for that fight, one of those guys loses. That fight, I don't want to say becomes meaningless, but it certainly loses a lot of its luster.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with Mayweather, of course, was just carted off to prison where he belongs. And he, I don't know.
Is he in prison or is he in a jail?
I think he's in jail.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there is. I've been watching that show, like Locked Up. There's a huge difference.
Oh, that show.
It's a scary difference.
It's like that movie.
Like watching
that movie Office Space. It's like that movie Office Space where they said it was like where they send you to like federal rape you in the ass prison.
Yes. That is
fucking
the big
Oz prison.
Yeah, this is the big difference between ending up in Oz and ending up in like Reno 911 jail. So.
One thing about the Bradley Pacquiao fight is because the Celtics are going to Game 7 in their playoff series. Bob Arum came out and said that the Pacquiao Bradley fight will not start until that game is over.
Holy shit!
Oh,
what time would you expect that game to end?
Well, they were saying that if you order the pay-per-view,
What ordering it anyway. Exactly.
Well, I mean, David, like, on average, how many fights do you generally see on a boxing pay-per-view?
4.
4? Okay. What time do you, if you order a pay-per-view, what time does the main event generally start?
In boxing, it's usually like midnight.
Okay, well,
It's
I
not
mean,
late or something.
I think that's what they're running on the assumption is that hopefully the game will be done, because I think the game's in Miami anyway. So I think they're hoping it'll be done by Miami or by midnight Eastern time anyway.
What time's the game start? At 9?
I'm sure it starts before that. I'm sure it's probably like 7 o'clock or something like that.
The game
But
starts at 7?
I don't know. I don't watch
I don't know.
NBA.
The game's not going to be 5 hours long unless it goes into like quadruple overtime.
Well, no, that's the thing. Well, that's what they were worried about, is that it potentially going into like overtime or double overtime.
He just stated the obvious. He stated the obvious. That's all. Unless there's some outrageous, ridiculous game that doesn't end until like 3 o'clock in the morning because it goes into a million overtimes. There's no way the game could. We're not going to start the main event until after the game ends, but that game should end around 10 o'clock.
Well, the funny thing is that Brent Brookhouse actually was saying that he was thinking that number one, this fight was. Well, he was saying that this fight wasn't going to do 1 million buys anyway, and then after Boston, Miami went to Game 7, he was saying that it definitely won't do 1 million buys. What do you think about that, David?
I think it's going to do 1 million. I don't think it's going to do 1.5 million like Mayweather did, but I think it'll do 1 million. This is Pacquiao. This is a pretty big fight. You know what? I don't want to say Game 7 is going to have that type of an effect, but maybe Mayweather's fight happening, like how long ago was that? A month?
Yeah.
That could have some type of an effect. I think this show will do 1 million buys. I think Pacquiao is good for that.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I can buy that. I absolutely can. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and start closing up this show. Of course, we want to thank Tommy Toehold for being on with us and putting up with our bullshit. Tommy. No, seriously.
Do the Nick Diaz voice. Do it.
He's making you do that.
It's hard to do on the spot.
Yeah, he has to warm up for it. You ever seen like a singer do like their vocal exercises? He totally does stuff like that. Mostly,
Would you warm up by smoking or something?
I think that's probably the best way to do it.
That's how I do it. Hang on a second. You'll get my imitation right now. Hang on.
Right.
David, that's how you warm up to do yourself.
Yep. That's our goal. People absolutely love that about you, right, David? That they can hear you like smoking and coughing. I love it too. All right, Tommy, tell people when your show comes on, how they can watch your show, and how they can get a hold of you on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, let's get Tommy 16 more viewers.
You can the show's usually every Wednesday. It is every Wednesday. It usually comes on around 3-ish East Coast, so I don't know. But it varies. It's youtube.com/Tommy Toehold, and I'll take you to my channel, which also features FightFans Radio on there. I just put it on there while we were talking. And if you want to find me on Twitter, it's @Tommy Toehold, and my Facebook is facebook.com/Tommy Toehold.
Word. Excited. Tommy and I are also going to be, we're working on like a super secret, top secret, super duper secret, need retinal scan project together. So hopefully this project will pan out and we'll talk about it soon enough on the show. But for right now, retinal scans only. Thank you again, Tommy. We love having you on here, man. We love your show, as apparently 25,000 other people do as well. So apparently our compliments probably don't mean shit. But you know what? We still love your show. And like you said, every Wednesday on YouTube. For us, the Fanatics, we are on, of course, every Friday at 5 p.m. You can reach us on Twitter @FanAddictsMMA. You can also reach FightFans Radio @FightFansRadio. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/FightFans Radio. You can listen to all of our shows live directly from our Facebook fan page. YouTube, we are also on YouTube. All of our shows end up on YouTube. Please be kind to us. I do realize that YouTube users are probably like the worst people on the planet, but you can definitely watch all of our video, listen to all of our shows on there, youtube.com/FightFans Radio. So that's all of our shows, FanAddicts, Untethered, The Low Blow, and our newest show, the BJJ Addict Podcast, which is an absolutely amazing show. We have Keenan Cornelius as a guest for next Tuesday. So if you're into BJJ.
Oh, really?
Yes, we got Keenan on there. So it should be a really great show.
You know what he just did?
Oh, yes. He's the first person ever to get double gold in the Grand Slam, for Grand Slamming all the tournaments, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he's an amazing individual. Absolutely amazing. And he beats people.
Explain what that is.
So basically, well, maybe you should, because you are the jiu-jitsu guy and I'm just kind of a poser. But
okay, so what Keenan did is the 4 big tournaments. It's the Americans, that's the Pan Ams, the Brazilians, the Europeans, and the World Championships. Each of those 4 tournaments, not only did he win gold in his weight class in each of those tournaments, meaning he's the best in the world, but he also won gold in the absolute division, meaning the no weight limit division. And Keenan's not a huge guy. Keenan's fairly tall, but he probably weighs like 180 pounds, I think, 170 pounds. And in the absolute, you're going against, a guy could be 250 pounds. And Keenan won gold, first place in all 4 tournaments in both his division and Nogi. So he took 8 golds. No one's ever done that.
And
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
From what I understand too is that there was one particular person that he beat that they were talking about, and they said that he made it look easy the way that he came in and just kind of just took over.
He's like 20 years old too. I mean,
some things come to people naturally, and apparently
No.
jiu-jitsu.
Master Lloyd would debate that totally. I mean, so much hard work goes into it.
No, and I don't think that hard work definitely beats out talent, but having talent helps for sure. You can't deny that.
I agree with that.
Having talent in something definitely
I agree.
Makes you above and beyond. So if you have talent and you put in the hard work, you have no choice but to be the best.
You're talking about a guy who was doing 3 training sessions a day, 6 days a week. You're talking like 9 hours of training a day, 6 days a week with nothing else. I mean, he just totally dedicated himself to this goal. Really, after Jimmy Harbison took the Grand Slam a year ago, or maybe it'd been 2 years ago. But Jimmy didn't take it in the absolute divisions as well. He won his divisions in each as a brown belt. Now he's a black belt, and he's incredible too. And he's also like 21 years old. And then there's JT Torres, who's also like 21. These guys are just unbelievable. And think about how much time they still have to grow. Yeah,
it's absolutely. Team Lloyd Irvin is pretty amazing anyway, but really excited about having Keenan Cornelius.
No American team does what Team Lloyd Irvin does.
No, then that's
absolutely not. Absolutely not, dude. The updates I've been getting from what Team Lloyd Irvin is doing right now is just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. So let's close out the show. We'll see everybody here next Friday, same bat time, same bat channel, 5 p.m. on facebook.com/FightFans Radio. So we'll talk to you guys later. Be safe and keep fighting, bitches. Peace.